the Genuinely Interested Podcast.
Frankie, thanks for coming on the podcast, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for having me, Roy. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time today.
Yeah, man. I kind of found you on Instagram, and that's for me being so I used to be a little bit of an amateur photographer. I really enjoyed it. Nothing became a career, and I didn't even know if that's something I necessarily wanted. I guess I kind of wanted it, but it just kept amateur. And the whole time when I was living out in the East Coast, I was like, one day I'm going to move to Denver. One day I'm going to be in Colorado, and I'm going to kind of see all the beauty, because all the photos I was seeing was either Pacific Northwest or Denver. And I was always like, man, like I got to live out there. And now I'm living out here, and
Sure.
it's pretty much as good as the photos showed. You know what I mean? Are you from here originally, or did you also kind of have that same rush where like, I got to move out to Denver because it's so damn beautiful? Or not specifically Denver, but like Colorado in general?
For sure. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio originally.
Okay.
So like many of the transplants out here, Midwest, grew up in Ohio, super flat, that state, there's nothing but farmland there. But in college, I went to Ohio State, and I was in ski club, and we came out here. We drove out on buses. It was the wildest setup. So we drove out on buses. There's a case of beer under every seat, and we would come out here. And, yeah, exactly. And we came out here, and that's kind of when I got hooked. Hit different ski resorts, and kind of just really fell in love with the mountain culture and the resort towns. And so that's where I'm from. And that's kind of what got me hooked on wanting to move out here, until I took a job. I lived up in Vail, Colorado for a number of years. Started a really crappy job with a hotel lodge there called the Lodge at Vail. And that's kind of how I got my start out here in Colorado.
I swear to God, every third person I talk to in Colorado is from Ohio. I shit you not. It's not New York. Yeah, it's not California. It's specifically Ohio.
New York, Texas, but yeah, there's not a lot there, and I don't go back very often. It's a hard place for me to recommend to people, but I'm a Midwest kid at heart, and that is one thing that you might have, like a lot of us have in common with each other, is there's like a funny saying that I heard when I first moved out. It's just like everyone heads west, and like you hit the mountains and just kind of stop, and that's the new home. So yeah, that definitely had an impact on me.
When did you move out here? What year?
So I finished college in 2010, and the job market, everything was kind of really pulling back. There weren't a lot of jobs. It was a time when people kind of moved home to try to figure things out. So I moved home for about 7 months, and then took that job with Vail Resorts. It gave me a free ski pass, and kind of just gave me the ticket to drive out and see what Colorado was going to be about. I didn't think I would be out here over a decade now. But yeah, that was the start of moving out here.
And then how did you get into photography? Like, that's something you had in mind when you came out here? Like, I want to get into photography?
No, not really. I knew I liked, so the path for me is a little different. I used to be into writing music and DJing a lot. And I really liked the music scene out here. We have Red Rocks. We have a really thick electronic dance music culture. And that was one of the big draws to me, as well as the cannabis culture, craft breweries, mountains, snowboarding. So all of it was a big allure to seeing what Colorado was about for me. And I was kind of lost and a bit directionless in life. So I just took a jump and took a chance to move up to Vail. And the camera really made its way into my life when I was done with my time up in Vail. I actually left Colorado and basically traveled out of a backpack with my camera for 11 months, essentially circling the globe at some point. But That was in 2015. So I spent a few years up in Vail, saved some money up there, and decided it was time to try something different, hoping to find somewhere else in the world to maybe live or settle down. And the camera was the one thing that kind of was my catalyst to not feeling like I was totally drifting out there. I was writing a travel blog and just kind of slowly developing a creative routine. I started shooting a little bit in Vail. I would do astrophotography and was really infatuated with shooting the Milky Way. It's very dark in the Vail Valley, which gave me a lot of opportunity to get out and shoot stars and that kind of thing. But never really thought I would do anything with it other than it being a hobby.
What are some of I mean, so you were kind of doing, not that digital nomad is necessarily new, but it wasn't, I think, as mainstream pre-COVID. And then COVID hit and everyone was like, oh, I want to be a digital nomad. I want to work from Bali and still make, 10, 20 grand a month in the US. You think if you would have done that now, you would have kind of stuck to it? Because it was a little bit harder, right? Like all the tools weren't available maybe 10 years ago, which they are now. Like if you're a creator, if you're a solopreneur, pretty much every tool that you can think of, from AI tools to non-AI tools, are available for creators. And 10 years ago, maybe 10% of those were available, or whatever the number is, much less.
Sure. I was on a quest to find a place where I felt like I really enjoyed the people and the place. So I think to answer you, basically I'd listened to Tim Ferriss. That was a big driver behind getting out to travel more and seeing the world. So I was definitely hooked on, can I make this work? And threw myself at it full time and ended up finding that, like, living on the road, if you know how to work and do free things, and it was actually less expensive to be out on the road than living in Vail, Colorado, which is an expensive place to live. And I wasn't necessarily making a bunch of money. I was writing for a ski blog at the time and had like little gigs here and there, but in general, just kind of like trying to figure out, is this a possibility for me? How can I make some money off of writing blogs or trying to mix photography into it? I guess it was the same thing, like on a quest to like maybe settle down somewhere else and live elsewhere in the world, but then like had a lot of impact. And I just felt really pulled to come back to Colorado. The people here are special. It kind of just drew me back in terms of like, it felt like a second home to me. Ohio's home, but I felt very in line with the lifestyle here.
Yeah. So it was more organic. It wasn't like, ooh, I have this goal and I want to achieve it, and doesn't matter what, I'm going to achieve this. It was just kind of like, let me go on this journey, see what comes. And then it kind of, I think the right thing probably fell in line, because your photos are fucking amazing, man. And it's so funny that you mentioned Tim Ferriss, because back in New York, I had a startup, I had a CPG company that I ran for a couple of years. And right before we started it, my co-founder at the time, he was working at a bank. And I gave him the Tim Ferriss book, the 9 to 5, I forget exactly the name. Yeah. And he read it, and within a week he quit his job, because at the time he was like, I should still work like this, but he just read it and went all in, quit the job. And then for the next 3 to 4 years ish, that's all we did. So that's amazing. Like the fact that he's got so much power, where people quit their jobs, people go on a journey, like you said, that's super powerful, man.
Totally. I think I had been hooked on like travel blog culture, and I was slowly getting on Instagram, and like, I was like, what would it take to get into this? So yeah, I think his book was a catalyst. I kind of had friends scattered around the world that I could stay with for a week or two at a time while exploring near them, to really cut expenses and cut costs. But like, yeah, he spelled it out in terms of, you can, you don't have to always work your life away. There's other things out there, and travel, and having the camera at my side kind of started to blend into building this dream of how can I make this work, and the camera be one of the main catalysts to maybe making a career or trying to make money off of it.
Were you an early adopter of Instagram? Because excuse me, I think originally photographers, and I don't know exactly what year was the tipping point, but there was a tipping point. Originally, photographers kind of thought of it as a silly thing, maybe. Oh, this is something where teenagers put funky filters and ruin pictures. And then at some point they're like, oh, actually, this is an amazing platform. And I could, as a photographer, even if let's say I'm not like, top 1% echelon photographers, that they already have the work, they're commercial photographers or fashion photographers or whatever it is, this is actually a good platform and I can actually get seen and I can actually get work through this. And I don't know what that tipping point was, but there definitely was a tipping point. So were you kind of one of the original ones, or were you a little bit, because I was a little later to the game necessarily?
No, it's funny you say that. The post I put up yesterday was kind of like an anniversary post for me. It was my 1500 post on the platform. I've been posting on there for like 11 years now.
Okay.
And it's funny to kind of go back and look at like, my photography sucked in the beginning. I'm being real honest. Like it wasn't good. But it's always cool to scroll all the way and like see this evolution of where's it come from and like kind of how has my style developed and evolved over the years. There were a few people that really hooked me into kind of what I do now. Chris Burkhardt being a huge influence of mine. There were just certain photographers that I really gravitate to. Ever Changing Horizon, Quinn is his name. So there were some people that just like took it to this other level that really hooked me on, in particular, the adventure photography space. So I think I've over the past couple years have a real love-hate relationship with Instagram, like many creatives do now, with the evolution of short-form video. And at the beginning, the purpose of the platform was photography. That was how it was born, and it has come so far from that. But before maybe my love-hate relationship started, it's always been a great place to network and meet people, and having a community on there has been a big driver for me to kind of keep going and keep pushing through the changes. I hate to say the A word, the algorithm it's always out there. It's something we're always battling. But I think I like the platform. It has connected me with some amazing people. It has provided me amazing opportunities. So, I might not be fully on board with it where it's at today, but I still post on there. I still get a lot of joy out of just sharing my work. And at the end of the day, just like connecting with other photographers and other people.
Yeah, the algorithm sucks. It's not it's not user friendly. Like the people that you mentioned, the Chris Burkhardt and Ever Changing Horizon and Jimmy Chin and all these other guys, right? Like they were actually kind of my inspiration in a way you could say, to come in, because I came to the US 9 years ago. I came and I studied photography for a couple of years, and and I did this in New York, but the type of photography I want to do was like what you're doing, right? Out in Colorado, out in the Pacific Northwest, that kind of stuff. And like the teacher was like, no, this you're not going to do this. Like he was just like, you should do commercial, you should do fashion, this, that, and the other. And I was like, all right, but like that was what drew me the most, right? And those guys were early adopters, like super early adopters, because at the time I think they already probably had hundreds of thousands of followers. So they caught on early, like, ooh, I could actually use this platform to grow my name, to become kind of a celebrity in a way, to create, to get sponsors, all that stuff, right? They were way ahead of the game. But now if you're coming up, I don't even know how you do it. Like if you're I don't know, if you're trying to figure out a new path for yourself and you're like, you know what, photography is something I could potentially do. I love photography. It is so incredibly difficult for you to get seen. The algorithm on Instagram specifically, from what I understand, TikTok, and again, TikTok is video, so it's different, but it's, and I mean, it's a spyware, but forget that for a second. Like just to be seen, right? To have your chance as a creator, you have to work so much harder than they did back. And not to say, I'm not trying to compare also, like they're very talented people, not to take anything away from them, but it's just so much more difficult today.
Totally. I do one-on-ones with people that want to come up and kind of beginner photographers, intermediate level. And I do get asked, like, do I need to be on social media to be a photographer? Or, does that have to be like, is that a badge or something that I need to verify that I actually do photography? And
Mhm.
I think my answer kind of trends in two directions there. It's like, I think it's important to be on the space. It is how you get your work seen by lots of people, if that's the ability that you have. But then there's this echelon of photographers who they're so dedicated to the commercial side of their business that they don't spend any time on social media. It's not a distraction for them. It's not taking away from their workflow. They're not checking stats, likes, followers. They're busy grinding on their commercial work. And there's a bunch of guys I know, even here in the Denver area. Adam Bove is one I'll mention. And his work is just remarkable. But like, and he's actually from Ohio too. It's his work isn't centered. What's that?
Shocking.
Exactly. Yeah. His work isn't centered around what he does on social media. So I think it's really separate him from, he's not an influencer. That's not, he's the guy charging, and I haven't spoke with him personally about the numbers, but like 10, 20, $30,000 photo shoots. He's not doing one-off influencer deals. So, my answer to those new people coming up is, I think it's important, but it's also important to just like focus on your craft. The art must come first for you, the dedication you have. And, you mentioned TikTok, and now we have Instagram Reels that we're battling with. The people that continue to push their name forward, even if they are just a photographer, they figure out a creative way to kind of play the algorithm, but still like get tons of views and lots of growth on those platforms. So all the power to them. I think it is an important place to establish your name. It is kind of like, if I'm bidding on projects or trying to work with a brand or a company, I have some email tracking that goes on, and they click through my Instagram. Like, I know they're looking at it. It is this other layer of like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. So you can still make it without social media. You have to be really good at your craft. You have to be really artistic. It's a flooded, really saturated space. Everyone wants to be a travel or adventure photographer now. So you got to stand out. You got to kind of separate yourself from the crowd. And I have a real love-hate relationship with social media lately. I spend a lot of time creating both off the platform and for the platform. And we're all scraping to reach new audiences, but even just tapping into our own audience again. So a long answer to say, yeah, I think it's important. But one thing for me that was super important in the beginning was just like getting out to chase sunrise, chase sunset, and kind of building this creative routine around failing and the grit behind waking up super early to go into Rocky Mountain National Park and chase an epic sunrise, and conditions are terrible, but I'm still in there. And that was what I fell in love with, not chasing clout or followers. It was this, and it's still in me. I just love to get outside. I love to be in the mountains. It's had a huge impact on me. It's kind of gotten me to where I'm at today.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, like you said earlier, you've been doing this for 11 years. Originally you sucked, right? The photography wasn't good. You kept at it, repetition, excuse me, honing your craft, and then you become better, right? And I think that's true for anything, but initially to put your stuff out there when you suck, ooh, that's a little scary, right? Because you're going to get some nasty comments, or even like potentially worse, you get 0 comments and 0 likes, and you're like, oh shit, like, oh, no one cares, right? It's not even like the bad comments. The bad comments, at least sometimes they can kind of fuel you. But when you get nothing, when there's just crickets, it's like, oh, okay, that's not good. No one cares about me. So that's why, there's this definitely like, I completely understand the love-hate thing, because on the one hand, I completely understand the power of social media as a tool. It's unbelievably powerful. We've never ever seen anything like it. The reach that you can potentially have. That I put out a video or a picture, and within 24 hours I could go viral potentially, right? I don't, but I could potentially. And then why wouldn't I use that? That's a very powerful tool, right? Especially with all the different platforms. If it's TikTok, I can create videos, YouTube videos, Instagram pictures videos, Twitter. I personally, Twitter is probably my favorite. just because of the way you have to kind of
Okay.
distill an idea into like so many characters, right? Which is it's not easy. It just, I don't know, it just, for me, it's probably, yeah, Instagram, Twitter. Yeah, I would put Twitter one. But then on the flip side, it is that constant need for like give me the pat on the back that I need, right? Or people
Yeah.
that are just not in real life. Like all they're doing is creating for the web, and they like, we're all always on our phone. So it is that, like, I understand it as a tool, like logically understand it, and I understand the need for it, especially if you want to grow your brand or if you want to make money or whatever it is. But then on flip, I do see. You ever see you ever see that show Black Mirror?
Oh yeah, super creepy. But yeah, I've seen a few episodes. I kind of had to I had to stop and say, yeah.
So I understand the Black Mirror aspect, dystopian future that we could potentially devolve into as well if things keep going the way they're going. Because I mean, at least I don't know how. I'm assuming you're probably a little younger than me, but I only got my phone when I was what 18, 20, something like that, when I was in the army. But the only first time I actually touched like an actual iPhone, I was probably late 20s. Now you got
Mhm.
kids that are 10, 9, whatever, and they're on all
Yeah.
the different platforms, and they're Twitch, and they're like that. Just longevity wise, that it can't be healthy. There's no way that's good for you in terms of longevity.
Yeah. Interesting you say that. So my background's in psychology. So I do a lot of I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I just finished one called Irresistible about this, how have they create this technology that is so addictive, and people struggle with alcoholism, drug addiction. Well, already now we're going to have treatment clinics for someone that's addicted to social media. Or I think one of the more depressing things I saw, I can't remember what it was in. I think it was on Netflix. It was about social media. I forget what it was called, but
The social
plastic
dilemma.
surgeon, yeah, the plastic surgeons talking about like a girl taking a photo of themselves and wanting to come in, and they want to be like this filter that's online. So that there are a lot of negatives to how it impacts. Even I even feel the self-esteem effects, and I'm really trying to remove that part of creating, because it does hold you back from putting out work that you really care about. But if we don't start to really pay attention to the negative implications, I have a lot of concern for the younger generations coming up. I remember just being in school without phones and social media, and you get a zit on your face and you're super nervous, or just like you're progressing through puberty and you're dealing with all these things. But on top of that, maybe you're not cool on social media, or you don't have a big following on TikTok, and that's how you get made fun of at school. It's just it's not a good place for younger generations. And it does have some real negative implications. It's a powerful tool, and I've tried to make it that is this is a marketing tool. This isn't it's not real life. It's this is if you could actually see what a week of my life is like, it's not this burner sunrises and amazing views and mountains and cabins. It's a grind. It doesn't really, I think there's a new thing that some big influencers do called filterless Fridays, where they try to kind of make it more relatable for people. But even that, it's such a dramatization of what is real life. And it can be super negative, especially people that are just trying to come up and make a name for themselves in photography. If you don't get that gratification, or you're not kind of reaching who you want to reach with it, it can just kind of stop you in your tracks. And I've had to battle that with myself for a long time too, of just why am I doing this? I'm not doing it for clout and for other people's recognition, but for myself, my own art, and honestly just my love of getting outside and hopefully inspiring people to do that as well.
Well, what people don't see, right, about that sunrise from a summit or something, right, is the waking up on a cold day at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m, right? When it's oh my God, it's so nice and toasty under the sheets, and I have to get up at 1 or 2 and I have to drive for 2 hours or 3 hours somewhere, and then I have to hike up someplace with all the gear that I have. And then by
Totally.
5:30 or 6, whatever it is, set up that right location and set up just so I could get that 15-minute shot. Like,
Yeah.
you're not, you
Sometimes
know what I mean?
less.
Yeah, you didn't just
Yeah.
like you didn't like get out of bed and then next thing you know you're on this perfect spot. It's like you have to. There's just so much involved and so much that goes in to get that 10 minutes or 15 minutes and get that perfect shot within those 10, 15 minutes, right? Because if you can miss and you're not in the wrong, you're in the wrong location because you woke up 20 minutes or 30 minutes late, then the whole thing is screwed. And then so there's work that goes into all this shit. This isn't just like and poof, you get this amazing shot.
Totally. I think I have a very distinct memory that illustrates just that. So I got married back in November to my beautiful wife, Ashley, and we went on a honeymoon.
Congrats.
Thanks. And right when I got back, I had some brand work to do. So I planned a mission into Rocky Mountain, but it was just like the day after getting back from Hawaii. Woke up at 3 a.m. and like on my reel, it says like, woke up at 3 a.m. to record this 7-second video. It's just like you're in there, like there's so much going on. Like it was terrible conditions. The wind was crushing me. It was like I'm shooting like a piece of apparel for a brand, and like I didn't even feel like I was dressed warm enough, especially coming straight back from Hawaii. So there was a lot of struggle for that particular morning, just for. And I think it was funny because it's just like I made just like a 7 or 10-second video that ended up doing pretty well. But people don't see I did make a plan for that morning, setting the alarms. I think the hardest part for me is just like getting up.
Mhm.
It's actually like falling asleep, making sure I get some rest, where you don't want to be in that mindset of like, oh, I'm going to miss the alarm, then I'm going to miss sunrise. So the hardest part for me is getting up, and then I put some like pretty loud, aggressive music on, and then I'm like feeling it. Then I'm into it. Then I'm ready to go. I think it's a hard thing for me to like teach or coach people through that. But if you don't like the suffer fest, the struggle fest of like, it can suck when you go out there, and that is part of the challenge of getting up and out to create it. You're not always going to get good conditions. Sometimes you catch it right and it's amazing. A lot of times you can fail. So you have to love both sides of it. We live for these moments that are just legendary light, amazing conditions, but then you can wake up at 3 a.m. and the sun is socked in from some clouds. And then you start to like really question, like, what am I doing? And the people around you, like, what are you doing? So you have to have a deep passion for it for sure.
Yeah, and even if I don't know if you're an outdoors person, like when I was in the summertime, and I learned this the hard way. You have to wait, like if you want to do a 14er, for example, right? You have to wake up 2 a.m. because it takes you, let's say, I don't know, 45 minutes to get ready. You get in the car, you got anywhere from, depending on the mountain, could be hour and a half up to 3 hours, even more. And then you want to get off the mountain by like 12 or 1, because then in the summertime, you got these crazy thunderstorms. And if you're on top of the mountain, and I've seen this so many times, like I'm already on my way down. I'm like maybe an hour away from the car, and I see people just coming up. In my head, I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And like, I can see the clouds rolling in. I'm like, I don't want to read about you in the paper, man. Like, I don't know what you're doing. Like, I'm in no position to tell you what to do. You can do whatever you want. But to your point, the weather plays a part. There's so many different factors just so you can have a successful summit or a successful photo or just have a good day outdoors. Like, it can go bad quick.
Totally. I remember back in the spring, I have a production company, and we did a photo shoot in the morning, and then the plan was to send it and do Quandary for sunset. Okay. And this was like early. This was like, there was still snow packed down. And we had to shoot, basically like we were shooting a video as we went up, showcasing some headlamps, shooting at the top, and then kind of showing the whole journey going down, because that was the best time to shoot the headlamps, is on the way down. And like right before the summit, I just started to feel like death. Like we'd already been up all day that day. It was a real push to try to do like 2 projects and a 14er in a day. I don't know. I think it was my poor planning. Probably like, this sounds great on paper, but And then we get to the summit and like my hands are barely functioning, can
Yeah.
barely operate the camera, but that is when you snap out of it. And I'm like, this isn't going to last long. Like I have to capture this. I have to make the most of this. And ended up coming away with some really strong imagery on the way down, just felt like complete death. I remember just like falling on my face, just like laying there in the snow. Just like when will the day be over? Like, can someone just drag me back to the car? And we still had to like film and shoot on the way down. So it is funny. It's you have to love it. You have to love being outside. And same thing. It's just like even just hiking is a feat, and then pulling out the camera, and I have 3 pairs of gloves on, but then I'm trying to like operate and change settings. So it's a battle. It's that's like those are the fun memories, but when you're in it, it's like, oh, like they're not paying me to get frostbite up here or altitude sickness or like, there's nothing that covers up that pain that you feel when you're actually in the moment. But then coming away with those memories is always a powerful reminder of like it was a struggle to get up there. And it's always cool to pull away something strong or a really good memory or a good photo.
That's, I think, what people don't understand. And I mean, I can see why, just because the photographer tends to be behind the scenes, right? He's behind the lens. He's the one documenting the athlete or documenting the product, whatever it is, right? But like, if you take just like a Jimmy Chin, for example, like he's carrying like probably 100 pounds worth of gear on him. He's rappelling down this mountain. He's probably, if not, he's probably almost as good as, the snowboarder or climber that he's shooting, but he's behind the scenes for the most part. But he's just so absolutely skilled because, again, he has to wake up earlier, right? He has to like get the whole thing ready. He has to stay on this on this ledge for maybe 24 hours or whatever it is. So he has to do all this behind the scenes work that is 3, 4, 5 times harder than the actual person in front of the lens. And that's the stuff that you don't really, sometimes you get like a behind the scenes look, but I don't think they get a full understanding of the difficulty and the scope of the project.
Yeah, that's the grit. I mean, he's an alpinist at heart and at core, but like, even standing on top of a 14er trying to operate a camera, and then you double that, and then you try to operate a camera, it's like, and the battery dies, and then you have 4 pairs of gloves on, and then you have fresh battery. It's just like, there's so many things that you probably don't think of. And then maybe you come away with 5 photos, and you just like, you have to hope and pray that like something's in focus and you took something away. But I recently bought his book for my brother-in-law, and I really enjoyed reading it because there's so much more, like there's so much behind the photo that is such an integral part of like the storytelling that is often missed by the viewer, or you just see something epic, you're like, oh, that's cool. But there's so much more there. Super talented guy. I can't even imagine what it would be like to operate cameras on Everest or on a huge alpine climb like that. It's just such another level of dedication to both like alpinism, photography, and just being an adventurer. He's another huge idol, I would say. Renan Ozturk, just like same scope. It's just like if ever I could be like a percentage or a portion of what they do, I feel like I would be a little bit accomplished. But they take adventure photography to just this whole other level.
Well, I think they're extreme people, and I think extreme people create extreme things, and we're drawn to extreme things because we have this inner dialogue where, could I do that? I probably could. Maybe I could do that. I could probably do that. No, I couldn't do that. But then they do, like, imagine being in the harshest conditions, right? Like the coldest, the driest, the hottest, the highest, whatever it is. And not only, excuse me, my throat's dry today. Not only being able to survive, being able to take like a Nat Geo front page type of photo while you're there. I don't think I'd be able to do that. Like, just being honest with myself, like, your hands are freezing, the wind is just whipping, and then somehow you get this amazing photo. Yeah, I don't know how he does it.
Yeah, to that I would say it too. It's like, you know, not only are they doing photo, a lot of those guys have gone in the direction of video. And say you're filming someone skiing down a really gnarly face and you forgot to hit record. Well, you can't go back. Like there's no like do-overs. There's no like, hey, can you run that one more time for me? It's all right, right? Like there is, yeah, you have to be so dialed and so ready with your just your craft, and also just like you can't miss those moments. Yeah, that there'll be split second. And that's truly what has elevated some of those guys' careers. It's just their ability to, yeah, and you're also like you're worried about your safety, your all of those things get compressed. Like once you have the camera out, you start to forget about, am I in a safe spot? You know, is there an avalanche that's going to come down on me? Like, did I sleep enough last night? Did I eat enough today? All of that goes away when the camera's in your hand and you're hyper focused on capturing a moment. So yeah, I think it's just wild, the video part, that, and they're hauling even bigger rigs up now to do video. So yeah, hats off to those guys for really taking it next level. And same with like Chris Burkhardt doing like surfing and in the Arctic or these wetsuits.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just yeah, a lot of people don't see the behind the scenes. And I think that's what I've enjoyed about some of Chris's stuff, is really showing the struggle to get those just like once in a lifetime moments.
Do you ever have, because I know you obviously love the outdoors as a separate thing from shooting the outdoors, right? Do you ever have like moments where I'm assuming, because I'm like that as well, where I'm outdoors and I'm always taking photos because I want to document the moment. I'm like, and also like, and your brain probably works the same. You're like, oh, that's an amazing, like you kind of frame it in your head, like that's a great shot, that's a great shot. Ooh, I don't want to. But then like there are moments where I'm doing that, and then my wife will kind of remind me like, be in the moment for a second, you know, like leave the camera for a second. Do you have that kind of inner dialogue as well, where like I want to get the shot, but I also want to be present for a second? And where do I find that common ground between the two?
Oh man, that's a huge struggle of mine. And my wife will tell you the same thing. I think she wishes I would put the camera down more and just take it in. I think as I've gotten a little more busy with my career and I just get out a little bit less, so I am really fixated on the capturing side. It is a struggle. There are times where I wish I was better at putting the camera down just to take a mental picture or just have like a mental moment. Or sometimes I'll like shoot pre-sunset and then I'll just like put the gear away. Like I go up to Mount Evans. I feel like I've been up there hundreds of times, and you know, if there's really nothing crazy happening going on or something like that, that is a time for me to just like take in the zen of a sunset or something like that. Totally agree. I wish I did that more. Definitely something I'm always trying to work on. It's this slippery balance of like, okay, I put the camera away, but now like it's getting really good, and it's just like I want to get it out again, or I want to put the drone up one more time. So yeah, it's a struggle, especially even in the winter when I get out to adventure. I'm not getting outside as much. So when I am out there, it does turn into like overshooting, and it's a problem. It's something I'm trying to work on. I also get great joy out of it. So that is what I love to do. But yeah, there is I think a healthy balance of like you can stop for once and just kind of like take this in for yourself.
Yeah,
it doesn't always have to be shared, or it doesn't always have to be for everyone else, but it's important to definitely take some in just for, like I said, just snap a few mental pictures or whatever you do to roll a little video in your headspace of memory. That can be super helpful to kind of remind you that it's okay to put the camera down for a few minutes and just take it in.
How cute are those goats up there on Evans?
Oh, love them. Yeah. They love to come by the road, and they're so curious. Yeah, I get so mad when I see people like feeding them. I'm like, this is just like,
yeah,
please,
you want to keep it help, because they'll fuck you up, you know. If you get too close, they can ram you. And like I always try to keep a healthy distance, but like just close or far enough where I can like snap a good photo. But yeah, you always want to keep healthy. Like that's the funny thing where like people just get too. And then again, I don't know if this is for the gram, right? Where it's just like, oh, I have to get like a selfie with a bear. It's like, yeah, it's not going to end well. I can tell you, that's not going to end well. You know. So yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with Turons of Yellowstone. It's an
no.
Instagram account where they basically showcase people like it's
Being
exactly
stupid.
what you're describing. Yep, getting way too close to wildlife. I saw one up at Mount Evans. We were in the parking lot there because we just we did Summit Lake to the top, and there was a guy who got way too close to one, and I was just like, I'm pretty sure he was doing a selfie or something. So he has his back turned, and I was just waiting because I was the one filming him. I'm just like, I really want this to like not go well because you have to learn a lesson, and if people don't, they'll keep kind of like flirting or just kind of like they'll be on that edge of like I can get a little closer, like oh, like I'm gonna try and touch this animal, and it'll bite you. Like they're still wild animals; they might be
Yeah.
cute, and I have seen the babies; they are really cute. But yeah, you got to have a respect for wildlife when you're in their home, especially.
Even a squirrel can mess you up. Even like this, you know, they'll if he wants to, like he would never do that. But technically speaking, if the squirrel wanted to, he's fast enough where he could run up to you, run up and like scratch your face or something, and then get up a tree, and you would not be able to do anything. So even like
Or
the
yeah,
smallest animal, you know,
rabies or something.
yeah,
Totally, yeah,
yeah, you want to keep it healthy.
yeah.
There's that famous
Leave the wildlife alone.
yeah, there's a famous you've probably seen this. I'm pretty sure this was Mexico. And these girls are out hiking, and there's a black bear just standing on its two legs. And you saw that one? And he's just like he's almost like humping the girl or something. He's like super close up, like right. And she somehow, with all the fear of like a black bear literally on top of her, and she's got her back to the bear, she manages to take a picture, a phone out of the pocket, and she takes a selfie with the bear. Luckily, miraculously, nothing happened. But like instead of thinking like, "Ooh, I have to figure out a defense system here or something," because I have this my back to the. She's like, "Oh no, selfie time," and she snaps the selfie.
Yeah, I don't know how that's the first. I would be terrified, and that's not the first place my mind would go. But yeah, that's people do need to have better respect for both our outdoor spaces and wildlife. I don't know where like the lack of even just like common sense like just kind of falls on the wayside for people and totally yeah you will those people will learn the hardest lessons and it's kind of like sad to see that but yeah it's their home same yeah
Mm-hmm.
respect their space respect yeah just even just like the idiocracy of like carving in an aspen tree it's like
Oh,
oh, this is
I
like
hate that.
it's just like no one cares about your initials, and you literally like we love our trees here. We love fall. Like
Yeah.
you're harming something that just it did nothing to you. So yeah, that's always something I'm a big proponent of is leave no trace and trying to it's important to protect places. There's a lot of people that have generate a lot of clout based on like tagging a location and being so informative. I think there's a fine line of like keeping a place special and quiet if it is special to you, while not just like blowing it up and being disrespectful. So sometimes I'll tag locations, sometimes I'll just tag a general area. But yeah, I have learned over the years. I used to tag all my locations, but I do want to kind of there are some spots where I don't want it to always be crowded or I don't want people feeding the animals or vandalizing certain spots. So I think we all have some creatives have these secret spots. Yeah.
So I was just going to ask, what are your favorite spots that you're willing to share / reveal in Colorado? Is there
Sure.
like one or two spots that you're like these absolute favorites that maybe like most people just don't go to?
Oh, well, just purely based on accessibility to San Juan's, and it's not like a specific location, but like it's so far from Denver and
Yeah.
super special down there. I've done a lot of hiking and backpacking down there. So I think purely because of how far it is, it keeps it special. I've also had some unique opportunities through like the tourism projects I do that take me to these just like off the cusp little mountain towns. And it's always crazy to see like how a gold mining town kind of morphed and evolved to where it is today. Even areas around the sand dunes, the San Luis Valley, there are these little pockets that are less discovered in Colorado. So the San Juans is up there for me. You know, Rocky Mountain is already so popular. So if more people go there, then so be it. But it's a beautiful place. It's very accessible, very easy to reach. There are some places in the San Juans that are starting to get over visited. Like, you know, I'll mention a few trails: Blue Lakes, Ice Lakes, Island Lake. They're not secret anymore, but they are going to trend in that direction of like, you need a permit now to visit because human waste, and we can't take care of these places. So this past summer we did a 4-pass loop in Aspen. Amazing trail, super, just amazing views, and it's like almost a 30-mile loop. So that is another thing that keeps the crowds down, is not everyone's just going to like go approach 30 miles, like 8,000 feet of elevation gain. So that is something we're trying to get into. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The big one. Yeah. You go, I think up basically, yeah, via the name, up and over 4 passes. So we are starting to kind of lean into these more challenging hikes that put us in more remote areas, because we know like not a lot of tourists are going to make it here. They might want to or think they can day hike something, but yeah, those have become a little more special to us as these larger backpacking trips that we try to plan and go on in the summer.
Have you ever had any encounters with wildlife while doing these backpacking trips?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Have you ever had any wildlife encounters while doing any of these backpacking trips?
It's funny. I've lived out here like 10 years. I think I've seen like only like a handful of bear, probably like a dozen moose, just from afar. I've never really had anything too crazy happen. Recently, this is kind of crazy. We stayed at a cabin property in Salida, and my wife was walking our dog just around. They have like a nature trail around the property, and I was not with them. I was shooting some photos, and in the distance, she saw her first mountain lion. So,
oh wow,
that could be pretty intimidating. You know, I think there was a national forest, like a boundary fence, but very jumpable for the mountain lion. It could have turned and it could have gone a whole other way. That would be something where I would kind of freeze in my tracks. I did have one other weird experience up in Vail, where I was shooting some astrophotography, and every like the hair on my neck went up, and you do have like a sixth sense when you're out there. Well, I went home to review some of the photos, and sure enough, in like one of the photos, there's like a pair of eyes like staring not too far away from me. So I remember like I put on some really loud music in my car and just kind of like packed up and left. But thankfully, yeah, I've had very little like strange or crazy experiences with wildlife. I definitely like to just like examine from afar and just kind of take it in once I see them. Yeah.
Yeah, those are the two, right? The mountain lions and the bears. More bears for me, but definitely mountain lion as well. I had a hike that I did a few weeks back, and it was a little remote. You know, I don't know. I was the only one on the entire mountain. I only saw one person right as I was coming down. But other than that, it was kind of like you had to like park off the road, and there wasn't anyone there. And like you said, like I didn't see anything, but I had this weird, eerie feeling at least, I don't know, halfway up or something, that I'm kind of there's something out there. And I rarely, I've hiked a ton here. I've only had this one other time. And it's just like you said, you can't really explain it. You just feel like there's something out there, especially, and it could be my mind playing tricks on me. Like I'm the only one out on the mountain. There's no one here. It's kind of like desolate, whatever. Yeah. So it could be my mind playing tricks, but I just felt like there was something there. I couldn't like substantiate it, but just a feeling.
Yeah. And then you get kind of jumpy, and then there's like a deer But like if there's deer, like there's typically like a predator out there too. So yeah, you never know. Or like a squirrel like cracks a branch and you like jump off the trail. So yeah, it's you still gotta be alert. And there's some remote areas in Colorado. I think I've spent a little more time on a few trips in Montana lately, and it's interesting to compare that wilderness to what we have here in Colorado. There are just stretches of just completely remote wilderness there that lead into the Canadian Rockies. And, grizzly bears are way more like the guide we went with. He has a pistol on his hip, and everyone has bear spray. So it is way more like a real danger there. I think the way I explain it to people that visit is there's a lot of room for the wildlife to roam in Colorado. They can smell humans. They know where we are and where we like to be based on their keen sense of smell. So I think there's a little more room for them to spread out here. Whereas when you go to Montana, it's like in Glacier, especially, you'll pass people and it's like telephone. It's like, there's a grizzly bear, there's some grizzly bears, and they'll be like half a mile off the trail, but it's like, it's exciting, but also,
terrifying.
like, you gotta watch yourself. You gotta be aware of your surroundings, or people that hike with two headphones in. It's like, I hate to like say it to them, but like you will be that next news article that someone got attacked on a trail. So try to be aware of what's going on for sure.
Does that give you pause when you're on the trail, right? And the people coming back tell you, "Ooh, there's a grizzly about a quarter of a mile up," and you're like, "Oh shit! Like I'm walking towards a grizzly. Is this a good idea for me to do?" And like for people who may not know, like so essentially, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if I'm not mistaken, grizzlies kind of only exist Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, roughly, maybe in the Pacific Northwest a little bit. I'm not sure. And grizzlies tend to be the most aggressive. Like black bears are pretty much in every state in the US, and for the most part, they're not super aggressive. They'll kind of run away. Grizzlies, I think, because they have to kind of fend for food because they're not on the coast, they're more inland in those few states, so they tend to be like very aggressive. Sure. And you don't want to piss off a grizzly. Is that about right?
I wish I had more bear knowledge that I could steal for you. I would say that's pretty accurate. I don't know. I definitely know Montana and north of there is a big concentration of them, but also just like making some noise as you go down a trail. Like you don't ever want to sneak up on a mama bear with cubs or a mountain lion with little mountain lion cubs too. It's just like same with a moose. Like they can get really aggressive if you're not even just talking while you're on the trail. Or that's a thing I'll do if I'm by myself is make some noise. Just so whatever might be up ahead hears my presence and knows that I'm coming. That's a good thing to just keep in mind while even if you're adventuring alone, is just like, make yourself known a little bit. So you don't kind of have a really scary situation break out in front of you. In Glacier, they do the same thing. They tend to stay away from where the humans are. They're usually busy eating or foraging. But same thing in that park. It's a very real danger, and it's a it's like a really heavily visited park. So even on the really simple, like maybe I would consider it like a Dream Lake trail. Everyone's got a can of bear spray. It's like it's not going to happen here, but as you start to hit the backpacking routes and get out there a little more, the probability of that happening goes way up.
Yeah, and you were talking about, I don't think people understand how huge moose are.
Oh,
I saw a couple doing the 14ers. They are humongous. They are so big. It's not like a deer. It's like 3 times the size of a deer. It's huge.
Totally. Yeah.
But luckily they can't zigzag. So as long as you're like, you find a tree, you should be good, because they pretty much just run straight.
Sure. Yeah. I remember driving out of Indian Peaks Wilderness one night and rounding a dark corner, and just right in the road was a huge bull moose. And I felt like if it wanted to, it would just like step on the hood of the car and just like crush my vehicle. Basically, like, you don't want to, that's nothing you want to hit with your car or be in the way of when they have, especially when they have their babies around. They can be extremely aggressive. So keep your distance. keeping an eye on them. And usually they're same thing. They're in the swamp or they're kind of off in the distance. But yeah, you can get to a section of trail where if the animal's on the trail, you either need to wait or make a safe path around. Especially in the case of a moose. Yeah, that'd be scary to get charged by it. They're like a ton. I don't even know how much a moose weighs, but
They're
yeah,
huge. There's a video of one chasing a bear in Alaska. I think I saw this a year ago, and the bear was just not like the bear was just running away. So if the bear's running away from the moose, most likely you should be running away from it too. And that thing was running. Like the moose is fast. Bear too, by the way.
Totally.
The bear managed to get away, but yeah, I don't want to be anywhere. That's why I feel like Alaska is really kind of like the last frontier. I have a friend now who moved there, and I've been seeing like just his Instagram reels and stuff, and I'm like, okay, that's like Colorado is wilderness, but that's wilderness. You know, that's that next level wilderness that you probably kind of mentioned in Montana a little bit too.
Totally, very remote place. I've never been. Alaska's on my list as well, but yeah, you need to respect both your own skill sets, but also like the dangers that can be out there, big time in terms, and especially like communicating, letting people know when you're leaving or when you'll be back. But yeah, very remote place, very wild.
So you've seen something that for me has been on my bucket list since essentially I was a kid. I can't even remember, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, like super young. And I've yet to see it, and you shot it beautifully, which is the Northern Lights, the Aurora Borealis.
Yeah.
What's A, like, where did you shoot it? And then B, I guess, like, as far as seeing it in real life versus seeing it on, you know, social media where it could potentially be like filtered and enhanced, stuff like that, like what it looked like.
Oh man, it gives me chills talking about it. I'm a big lover of like astrophotography, and Northern Lights, super special thing to see. Like I think I've taken people out in Colorado to see the Milky Way for the first time, and that's a profound experience on some people to begin with. You feel so small and minute, and even your problems, like everything you might have on your mind, just kind of melts away. Well, I would put the Northern Lights at this other echelon of that. I was super thankful to go on a workshop in Norway with two huge idols of mine, Nate in the Wild, and Autumn Schrock, who goes by the Instagram name of Aut Pops, and they host a Norway workshop where it's a 7-day workshop, and a big part of that is chasing the Northern Lights. And why I say chasing is people will go there for 10, 15, 20 days and not even get a glimpse at them at all. So it does become, I'm sure it puts a ton of pressure on them because they have people paying money, and you don't just like push a button and you get to see them. It's you need a bunch of things to line up. The KP rating needs to be high enough. You need clear skies, which the weather in Norway, especially in the winter, it can be just complete shit. We were there during like a winter cyclone, and you know, the whole group starts to feel this like impotence of like, are we going to get a glimpse? Are we going to get a chance to see them? So one night we headed out because the KP rating was very high, and this was probably like night 6 of 5 nights of this going out. Just even if you just get like a little glimpse through the clouds, you feel like, oh, this could be really, really cool. And the weather was bad by us, so they drove us an hour and a half to a different fjord where it was supposed to be clear skies with a higher KP rating. And honestly, hard for me to describe. It gives me the chills just thinking back to it. It kind of relates back to that question about you get there and it starts happening, and you're just so enamored by the beauty that our planet is able to create. You know, this is basically the stratosphere of the planet, like defending us from basically flares of I believe it's from the sun. So and the colors are just out of this world. You get green and purple and blue. So it's hard to describe even over audio. If people are curious, yeah, definitely jump on my Instagram. You can scroll back and see some of my Norway photos. But then it kept happening, and the Aurora storm was getting more intense. So I started to sink into kind of making some creative photography with it. And It's different than shooting astrophotography. They kind of burst above you in basically like these ribbon type aurora tails, and you just feel so it like almost makes me want to cry rethinking about the memories, because it's just such a powerful experience. And everyone's getting really excited, and you're snapping lots of photos or making a time lapse, and yeah, to just like sit there and take that in. I think if there's one thing that I think people should experience in their lives, it's going to see the Northern Lights. It had a really profound impact on me, and super thankful that we got a chance to see them and experience that. So yeah, very crazy experience, super humbling, and yeah, just it's hard to describe. It's out of this world. Yeah, you just like, you don't even think that our planet's capable of creating such beauty.
Even if you're not a spiritual person, would you say that is as close to a spiritual experience as one can have?
Totally. Yeah, it humbles you. Oh, for sure. It's just like, it's just kind of like, how is such beauty possible? Like, maybe I can liken it to how I've been to lots of concerts and shows and like laser beams and all the special effects, all of that. But it's like, this is a natural phenomenon. So it feels very spiritual. And there's a lot of Norwegian folklore. They used to be afraid of the Northern Lights because it's just so like, they didn't know what it was or how to explain it or how to digest what was happening above them. So there was a lot of fear about the lights. So yeah, very spiritual indeed.
I could see how people back in the day, whatever, hundreds or maybe thousands of years ago, they would think this is like, I don't know, either good or bad or however they wanted to interpret it at the time. And now that we have the science, we kind of know, okay, this is the reason. But like all of a sudden the sky is turning green. You're like, what the fuck, And you're like in your little village with 10 other people, and someone did something bad that day. You're like, oh, this is a ominous sign, like something bad is about to happen. I could definitely see that happening.
Or yeah, if the science they know is like a meteor came here and destroyed all the dinosaurs, it's just like, it's such a crazy space phenomenon that if you don't have a good understanding of and they didn't know the science and the background behind it, absolutely it would be, I would say, terrifying in its own right. Yeah.
I mean, that I could see that as them seeing God in some form trying to relay some sort of a message, and then the village elder would probably just like take that and, okay, he would form something in his head. We should be doing A, B, C, D. Look, God is mad, or God is happy, or God is whatever. Oh yeah, 100%. I would that, and again, that's
totally.
It's been on my bucket list since I was like 5 or 6. So I'm really hoping to kind of catch a glimpse of it in the next year or two, either in Norway or Canada or Alaska or somewhere.
I wish you good luck. It's very profound, and I hope you get a chance to see them.
Yeah, man, me too. All right, before I let you go, so if when kind of scrolling through your Instagram and on your website too, you've worked with a lot of really cool brands, some of which I use daily actually.
Nice.
What if you're a kind of if you're a photographer starting out trying to get more commercial bids, right? Like, what is the process? Like, do they have to rack up those Instagram numbers and put a portfolio together? Do they have to reach out to the brands? Do they have to wait till the brands reach out to them? What is the process of starting to link up with some of these type of brands?
Totally. I'm slowly putting out and developing some educational material that talks about just this. So I think an important piece is having a portfolio, and I think it should be separate than Instagram. And I think building that portfolio is just getting out and creating a routine around your creative endeavors. I think for me, it just started with like, these are the things I have with me when I'm out shooting, like a Cliff Bar, a tripod, a backpack. And then those are the things I started to kind of showcase in some of my imagery. That wouldn't be like the focus of my shoots. I was out there to shoot adventure and landscape work, but how can I mix this into the imagery that I'm already creating? So I think it's important to have a good portfolio built out. If you go to approach brands and are only sending them your Instagram page, I think that only gets you so far. unless you have a huge following. Then they kind of want to tap into your audience, which is a little bit of a slippery slope for me. I think it's a matter of what you want to do. If you want to be more on the commercial end, it is just like a lot of connection and networking. Even just you can use Instagram as a tool, sending the DM, asking for the right email. You can spend a lot of wasted time on not sending your stuff to the right place or the right person. So there's a lot of tools out there to making sure you're getting like the marketing manager's email, or just like basically doing more research on the brand and company before you just go like spamming people with, hey, I'm a photographer, I'd love to work with you. Well, take that a step further. Say, I'm going on a backpacking trip in Glacier National Park. We'd love to showcase your GPS unit while we're out there. And basically, the more you build out the creative idea, you're just looking for like a green light for them. And then the added bonus of they see that you're talented, you might have an audience, or that you just put out good work. That's a good recipe for getting some positive responses. So portfolio, making sure you're reaching out to the right person. The old send a DM, you can try that. It's working less these days, but doing networking and just kind of getting yourself out there to try to basically bump into the right person who makes those decisions, that kind of thing.
So even if let's say you don't really have a following and you're just kind of starting out, would you say doing free work in the beginning is a good pathway? So for example, if I want to work with some energy Cliff Bar type company, I reach out to them, hey, I love the product, I already use it. I'm gonna do this hike, and I'm just gonna shoot either a video or photos, and you can use this for free. And then if you like it, maybe we can form some sort of relationship, and then you can use me later on. But start kind of building out those relationships with the companies that you like from the onset.
Totally. You can take that a step further. And another thing too is like, maybe don't start with Cliff Bar, like start local.
Small.
Like, yeah, say there's like a Boulder energy bar company, and then like get out there, shoot some, I call it spec work, basically what you're talking about, free work, wrap that into like a nice proposal, or putting in a link on your website and say, hey, like I made these 10 images, they're free for your company to use, but I have X, Y, and Z trips coming up, or have some cool adventures coming up. Can we continue the conversation about how we can make more assets or content like this? So starting small, not really reaching out to the big brands right away, but yeah, doing a lot of spec work can be really important for yourself to build that portfolio, but also gets you a foot in the door. And you'd be surprised, like the more local, smaller companies, they really appreciate that, but also they might have a budget to then start paying you for it. So I think it's important to definitely build the portfolio in the beginning by doing the spec work, and then understanding your value, trying to figure out what you might charge the brand or the company, and then trying to turn that conversation into a paid project.
Yeah. I think a lot of times people want to, what's that thing? The cart before the horse. Like they want to jump and already be professional and get the money and do everything. You have to realize, like, especially if you're starting out, like there is a process. And like you said earlier, like because it's such a saturated market, like you have to have some sort of a differentiator. And if you don't have that initially, that's completely fine. But you're going to have to hustle, and you're going to have to go through that process in order to get to that position where then once you get there, you're like, okay, now I can start charging XYZ. Now I can start building a brand with my name, and so on and so forth.
Totally. I think, and also being the person on the other end of the computer, like, Cliff Bar might get 1,000 DMs a day. So that's why I say to kind of go more local and smaller, which might turn into more opportunity for you, rather than feeling like, okay, why aren't the big brands getting back to me? Well, you might not be at their level yet. They might appreciate the free content, but it's not going to turn into anything paid yet, because you might not have the portfolio to back up whatever you're trying to charge for a shoot. So start small and keep building on those baby steps, but also like the water bottle that's with you on your hike, or the hiking poles, or all these other like accessory products that maybe they just come with you on your adventures. And then you just write like a passionate email that says, hey, I use your gear all the time. I like your brand. This could be a really good partnership for us to both benefit. You get some assets. I get to continue getting outside, and this works for both of us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome advice. Frankie, this was a lot of fun, man. I really appreciate your time today.
If you want to get out and hike ever, Roy?
Dude, let's do it. Let's do it. Where I mean, you kind of already like dropped it a few times, but where can people find you? What are the best places? You know, plug. Do the plug.
Right on. I'm on social media. The handle's free water. The E's are threes, so it's FR33 water. I'm on Twitter. My main website, I operate a few different websites. It's called frankieboyphotography.com. If you want to order prints or book me through there, feel free to reach out. Feel free to send me a DM on Instagram. I love to link up with people, grab a coffee, get out and hike. Starting to get into climbing more. So my main channels, Instagram, Twitter. And I really appreciate your time for having me on here today. But yeah, check out my work over there on Instagram and Twitter. And I will see you guys out on the trail, hopefully.
Yeah, man, this was awesome and a lot of fun. And as always, I'll be sure to link everything, all the links in the show notes, make it easy for everyone to find it. This was awesome, man. I really appreciate it. We'll have to do it again.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate you, Roy. Thanks a lot for reaching out.